Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining me. So, we are going to be having a conversation about spirituality today. So, it's less about astrology and more about spirituality and the occult. So, today I want to talk about spiritual rituals and some of the processes that we set in place before engaging in those rituals. So, as you know, smoke cleansing is one of the most common ways that people go about beginning their spiritual ritual. A lot of people who are uninformed about this practice, when they see people having smoke in their video, they assume the person is smoking it, when really it's oftentimes the person is actually cleansing their space and they're doing that with some type of herb. I went ahead and did some research about smoke cleansing and smudging because I wanted to understand a little bit more deeply about this history of smoke cleansing as part of our spiritual ritual. And I also wanted to understand conversation is around cultural appropriation when it comes to using white sage specifically as a part of a spiritual routine. As many of you may already know, Native Americans have long used white sage as part of their spiritual rituals. So there's been an insurgence of many more people from various cultures using white sage as part of their spiritual ritual. And in the spiritual community, there is a divide among people about whether that is appropriate or not, whether that is cultural appropriation or not, and whether that's something that anyone who's not native should be participating in. Thanks again for liking the live. I appreciate it. So let's start with a little bit regarding ancient practices. So the use of smoke has been around for many, many, many years. It's been something that is common among many ancient and primitive cultures, all the way from Africa to the Americas to Europe to Australia, to Asia. It is well documented. It's also well documented in religious and spiritual books. The Vedas, if you're a Hindu, you're probably familiar with documentations of smoke cleansing in the Vedas. And if you're a Christian, you're probably also familiar with documentation of smoke cleansing in the Bible. So in the Bible, it talks a lot about burning incense as a symbol of prayer and rising it up to the God in heavens. So as you can see, there's clearly information here about incorporating smoke as a way to heighten or enhance our spiritual communication with the spirit world. In terms of the smoke itself, in many cultures, it's definitely a very consistent theme that is often used for sacred ceremonies. It can also be used for sending, souls away or spirits away in terms of funerals. When people die, it's not uncommon to burn smoke. It can also be observed among many religious practices around the world where people are having religious ceremonies. And as part of that ceremony, they'll have an altar and they'll have the smoke. Okay. Now, with regards to Native Americans in general, Native Americans use smoke to smudge, which is done to drive away sickness and bad energy, and it helps the people taking part in the ceremony to feel grounded and centered. Okay, so historically, what that would look like would be a pot that is filled with tobacco, sweetgrass, sage, cedar, just a lot of different herbs and woods. And they would light that on fire and fan it around the room so the people could bathe in it. There was also some healing properties to it, cleansing properties as well as spiritual properties. So, smoke cleansing or smudging isn't just done for the sake of spirituality, it is also done for health reasons, which is the other aspect of it that we don't talk about it much. There's actually evidence that shows that incorporating smoke into our healing process can help kill bacteria in the air. So there's other elements of it too that are beneficial, which is why this practice has been around for so long. In a Caribbean, cigars and tobacco smoke is puffed over the man by the shaman to basically cleanse and strengthen them. So any smoke that enters the body will take in with it the power of the spirit that is being carried through that smoke. So shamans, in if you're Caribbean, you're probably familiar with shamans, will also use smoke as a way to basically heal the body and cleanse the body of any kind of spiritual energies that are not in harmony with healing and health and optimal functioning. There's also sacred ceremonies that ancient cultures in Australia have participated in that are often used as a welcome ceremony, and it's really something that they do as a sign of respect for both the people that are alive and the people from the past. So, in short, burning some kind of substance, whether it's incense, wood, sacred wood, of course, resin, herbs can be found in all places of worship, can be found in all continents, and can be found in all world religions in one way or another. Smoke will always have a place in spiritual ceremonies, no matter the culture, the religion, the spiritual practice, the indigenous culture. That's just what our ancestors knew. Our ancestors knew that coming in contact with smoke can cleanse us. Okay. So, going back to talking about smudging. Smudging, generally, you will see a lot of people on TikTok doing this where they'll light white sage, which is one of the most common herb that is used. It's basically several leaves of white sage that are bound together by a rope, and they will light the tip of it, and then they will use it and move it around as to cleanse the space. Okay? A lot of people will engage in this ritual before other spiritual rituals, such as meditation or before pulling tarot cards or any type of spiritual practices that they want to engage in to allow themselves to open up their third eye, their heart chakra, and their crown chakra, and really be able to, absorb the spiritual information that is coming to them. I know that white sage is the most common herb that is used for smudging, but there are lots of herbs and raisins and woods that people can use for smudging. When using herbs, the leaves typically are going to be bound together, as I mentioned, to make like a stick. But some people prefer loosely opening up the leaves, which is what I do personally, and put them in a receptacle, a metal one, and then light that on fire and fan that and allow the smoke to disperse throughout the house. It really helps to kind of set the moon. It can go with basically setting the intention for your ritual and basically summoning, the spirit world to be with you as you're getting ready to go on this journey. Anyone who engages in meditation knows that it's truly a journey when you're meditating. You know, the state that you're in 5 minutes into your meditation is very different from the state that you're in 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes into your meditation. And if you've ever meditated for an hour, the state that you're in at 30 minutes, 45 minutes is very different. Meditation is a deeply spiritual experience. And if you engage in transcendental meditation, which is all about transcending the physical realm into the spiritual realm, you can quickly see how deeply impactful that can be for your emotional well. So, smudging is often a crucial step in any kind of ceremony or ritual to help purify, to help cleanse, to help invoke the spirit world, and to help invoke gods or goddesses or spirits that you work with to basically join hands with you, so that you can make the most out of this ritual, this experience. It always brings, an essence of formality. Excuse me. It always brings an essence of formality as well as an essence of sacredness, to the ritual itself. This is why I don't like to see people smudging on TikTok without seeing some of these other steps, because with regards to the conversation around Native Americans and appropriation of their culture, I can see how if you're a Native American, it can seem like your culture is being trivialized, by people just lighting up a stick and shaking it everywhere. I remember for Fashion Week this year, they had one of the models. I don't remember which one it was, so I'm not going to say her name. But they had one of the models walking down the runway with a stick, of white sage. And a lot of natives were offended by that because, oh, thank you, Waterwind. Thank you so much for my gift. I love you. Thank you. I appreciate it. So they had her walking down the runway with a smudge stick, and it was very offensive to a lot of people who take their spirituality seriously, who take their spiritual practices seriously, because, there is a whole lot that goes along with lighting the white sage. It's not just taking the stick and lighting it up and that's it. Like, there's several things that you need to do. And, when it comes to spiritual practices, anybody who has been engaging in spiritual practices for a while knows that there's so much to be said about the ritual of it all. And rituals obviously are about routines. So it's about doing certain things in a specific order so that you can get the same result, right? And you do it in the same order every time because it creates discipline for you, because it's hard for us to, not disconnect from our conditioning as humans and not disconnect from the 3D. So that discipline helps establish some kind of routine that creates safety, that reduces anxiety, so that in the future, when things feel out of place, you can quickly recognize it because you already have a pattern in place that is set in stone. So that element of sacredness is really what smudging is about. It's about honoring your divinity, honoring the spirit world, whether that is your ancestors you're calling upon, gods or goddesses you're calling upon, spirit guides that you're calling upon, so that you are getting reinforcement before you go on this journey. So you're not going on this journey by yourself without a spiritual team there with you. Now, let's talk about how to burn it if you're someone that likes to use the sticks, okay? You want to hold your stick at a 45-degree angle and light the tip of it, okay? Now, those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, I'm actually going to go get some of my items so I for those of you that are new, so it doesn't feel like I'm talking about something that feels so weird to you. So bear with me one second. I'm going to show and tell. All right. If you're trying to deepen your spiritual practice, the best advice I can give you is to get into a ritual with your spiritual practice, because spirituality is about really reaffirming our spirit nature. Yes, we're human beings, but we are spirits that are in a human form. When you and I die, we don't stop to exist. We stop to exist in this body because this body is not permanent. This is something I'm borrowing. This right here, all this, I'm borrowing this for this journey, right, that I am on, requires this uniform. This is my uniform, okay? Remember when RuPaul said we're all born naked and the rest is drag? This is very appropriate for that comment, because this is not mine, this is not eternal, and this doesn't live forever. It doesn't belong to anyone but the creator, the universe, however you want to think about it, right? So the reason why this was given to me is because this is the best body for me to be in for the job that I was sent here to do. Okay. This is why when I'm done with my job, which is when I die, this goes away. But my spirit, which lives inside of me, never goes away because energy is neither void. So if you're trying to get tapped in, it's important that you set a ritual with yourself. Thank you, Waterwinds24, and others who have contributed to the live goal. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, guys. I love you. Thank you for all of the support you're giving me. So, spiritual rituals are really about reconnecting with our spiritual essence, because there's so many things that happen on our human journey that can make us forget who we are, make us forget that we're divine. People say we're daughters and sons of God. I personally don't believe that. I don't believe I'm a daughter of God or that anyone is a daughter or son of God. I don't think God has children. I don't think God needs children, more importantly. I do think that God has servants, however. God does have servants and slaves, workers. Um, I don't think God has children, because who's God mating with to have children and why? Even that language to me is a bit insulting, because it's putting God in a human format, and God is greater than humans and humanity. God is greater than animals. How can the creator of the same as the human? Like, it makes no sense. So I don't think God has children. I think all of us are from God and all of us are of God. So all the qualities that are in God are in us. All of us collectively, together with the master creator, is what we call the universe with the animal kingdom. Okay? So the essence of God is in us. We are gods. We are goddesses. We are a part of God. Now, does that mean that we all the ultimate creator? A lot of people are afraid of that term because they think it means that we made God. And no, what I'm saying is that each one of us is a fragmented version of God. In the same way that the Big Bang Theory explains that we are fragmented stars, because what happened with the Big Bang Theory, if you're someone who doesn't believe in God and you think of God's, and you're a very scientific person and you think of the beginning of life through scientific means, let's go with that theory. So with the Big Bang Theory, what essentially happened is that there was matter in the sky that exploded, that was there for a really long time, and it exploded, and several different particles fell into the earth, fell onto the universe rather, and then created different planets, one of them being Earth. We have Jupiter, we have Neptune. All of these planets were once stars in the sky. Did you know that? So these planets didn't exist. At first, it was just a particle of matter in the sky that exploded, fell into the universe, which, I personally believe in God because to me, the beauty of all these planets and how all of them are so symmetrical and so beautiful. Like there's too much magic, even in their presentation, for that to not be spiritual for me. Your name, Tiffany, means a revelation of God. Oh, I love that. What a beautiful name. That's beautiful. So yes, for me, the idea that all of these stars like exploded and all the planets were just like so perfectly made and beautiful is a bit far-fetched. But I understand for some people logically they can embrace that thought process, and that's perfectly fine. There's no rhyme or reason to any any of this. It's just whatever makes you feel the most comfortable. For me, it makes me feel the most comfortable to believe that there is a mastermind, if you will. There is, very high intelligence that we call consciousness, that some of us call God or creator or source or spirit, that is behind the creation of all these planets. So the particles that can be found on Earth are also found within us. There's literally no space that isn't already in us. This is why astrology gave birth to astronomy, which gave birth to modern day medicine, because we didn't know about hydrogen and all these different chemicals that go into creating medication until we understood what was in space and until we understood what was in us. So, the purpose of these rituals is to really reconnect ourselves with our essence, which is the star that was living in the universe before it exploded onto Earth. Like, who is that spirit? Why is that spirit here? What is their mission? What is their purpose? What is their energetic vibration? Anybody that has ever studied, metaphysics to that, or if you're into studying any type of like physics that involves like religion, like astrophysics or anything in that realm, what you're going to learn about is a lot of understanding of energy. Not thinking about the human life as in terms of the biological sense, but more like the energy of a life. Because when you think about it, when we talk about us dying, say we expired, right? We expired. Well, what does that mean when you expire? It means your time has run its course, right? It means the energy that is now in this food is no longer edible because now the time has passed, right? And we use that term even in the biological world, even though astrophysics, we think of ourselves as energy. So if we were to look at each other under with a different lens, what we would observe is that each one of us carries a specific energy with us. And those of us who aren't even that well versed in any of this can sense it. Like when you get around a person whose energy is negative or draining or, infectious or contagious or exciting, like you can feel that. You don't need a PhD to feel that, right? Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Have you ever walked into a room and like caught a bad vibe? Like you just knew that whatever was going on was not good? Or I'll make it even more personal. Have you ever walked into a room and after you walked in, like you felt like something weird was going on? Either the people in there were talking about something you weren't supposed to know, or maybe it was about you, or it was about something that affected you. Anyone knows what I'm talking about? Yeah. Well, we don't know physics, but we can feel that. It's because everything is energy. Everything is literally energy. So the purpose of smudging and smoke rituals, yeah, the purpose of smoke rituals and smudging, hi Lee, thanks for being here, is for us to reconnect with our divine essence. Because what tells us that there's a bad vibe in that room is our energy. Our energy is basically rejecting the energy that is in that room. It's not meshing. We don't know all the details, but we know we don't feel welcomed and we don't feel good in this space. Someone said I was at a swim class yesterday and I was so overwhelmed by someone else's negativity. Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. And if you happen to be an empath, and I know that word is thrown around a lot, but those of you that know what I'm talking about know, if you happen to be a sensitive soul, if you happen to be someone that generally likes being in a positive space and who feels other people suffering, this world is not easy for you because there's so many people that are living in darkness and in their conditioning and that are living with a lot of negativity and that aren't even aware of it. And all it takes is for you to come around them and they transfer all of their negativity to you. They're just so happy to just, haul it all off to you so that they don't have to worry about it. This is why smudging and smoke cleansing is such an important part of our daily lives because we don't think of ourselves as humans. We think of ourselves as spirits that are having a human experience. So when our spirits are troubled, either because of our own negativity or because of other people's negativity, we want to cleanse that. We want to heal that. We want to center that. Because without being grounded, without being centered, we're not in our skin. We're here, but we're not really here. We're not really settled. We can't do what we were sent to earth to do if we don't know how to get ourselves settled. And if we don't know how to cut through the negativity and the smoke mirrors and all the traumas and the dramas and all of the distractions to really get to what we're trying to get to. So back to how to do this properly. You want to hold the flame. You want to hold your stick rather at a 45-degree angle, okay? So that's 90, right? 45, right? And then you want to light it. After you light it, it's going to go away by itself. But if it doesn't and it keeps lighting for quite a while, it's okay to blow on it so that it can go out, right? So basically allow the flame to do its thing, to smolder. And if it catches on fire, you can gently blow it out, collect the ashes, and then you can move it around your house. My recommendation is to start by your front door and you work in clockwise motion, kind of like the 12 zodiac signs. Are you seeing the pattern here? And you're going to go around your home in clockwise motion with it. Now, before you take a step to get that process started, I need you to set an intention. Remember, this is a spiritual ritual. Every spiritual ritual has to have an intention. What am I doing this for? That's what the intention is. What is this about? And when we're setting the intention, we set it with the end in mind. So, as an example, anybody that's, maybe I shouldn't say it that way, but a very common practice among some of us spiritualists is that on the first of the month, we do certain rituals to welcome in the new energy of the month, right? Some of us also do it around the lunar calendar, when it's a new moon or a full moon. So let's say it's one of those important milestones in time and you're trying to reset the clock. Whatever your intentions are, I need you to be very clear about them by focusing on what you want to see happen. As an example, right now we're in the full moon in Gemini. Full moon in Gemini is coming to reveal some truths to us about who we are and how we move and the things that we do that are basically preventing us from manifesting our dream lives. Because Gemini and Sagittarius are all about, cold, hard truths, like the facts, nothing but the facts, okay? These are not very sensitive personalities. It doesn't mean they don't care, but they're more committed to the information than they're committed to protecting your emotions or their emotions for that matter. So it's about truth. So right now, all of us should be getting some influx of information around what are some patterns that I have set in place for myself that are preventing me from being my best self and living my best life. So let's say that you've acknowledged that one of them is that you procrastinate. And then upon further investigating, you realize that you tend to procrastinate more. Upon further investigation, rather, you realize that you tend to procrastinate more in the evening because you have the most amount of energy during the daytime, hypothetically speaking. So as you're smudging your home, after you woke up with this new realization, or maybe it's at the end of the day and you're trying to reset the clock, you want to set that intention of maximizing your potential during the day, right? Because you know that's when you do your best work. And you know nighttime is not the best time. Yes, I do tend to procrastinate, is what you tell yourself. I realize now that I'm a procrastinator. I realize now that my life is not where I want it to be because I tend to procrastinate. And I realize that it's much worse in the evening than in the day. So let me make the best use of my daytime. So my intention, if I was that person in that scenario, would be I am very productive during the daytimes. I am the most productive during the daytimes. I am highly effective during the daytimes. I get all of my work done during the daytime. Pick any of those. Or I'm calling upon my ancestors of the highest light to make me the most productive during the light hours. Do you see that? So then what you're doing after you lit it, and before you take that first step as you're going through your house, you're reciting that to yourself. I am calling upon my ancestors of the highest light to make me the most productive during the daylight hours. That's your intention. So when we're setting intentions, it's not just about what do I want to see happen. It's helpful when we can be a little more specific about the intention so that we can also monitor ourselves. That you have in your space, energetic distractions that are keeping you from that, you're cleansing that out. In this case, if I was working with such a client, I would also remind them to call their power back to them because that's another way to do that, to call your power back and to cleanse your space. And I would routinely keep working on that every day. I would even incorporate that as part of my morning ritual so that I'm aware of this as my day is getting started. And I can keep doing that same ritual until I've gotten myself to a point where I feel I have better control of my time management. So that's what I mean by setting the intention. So as far as working with our ancestors, I'm not going to go into the well of that conversation. There's so much there with regards to that. I will save that for another conversation altogether. But before setting your intentions, it's good to pray and it's good to call upon, to invoke upon certain gods, goddesses, spirits that you work with so that you can feel supported before you set your intention, before you start your ritual. You see that? There's steps. Get spiritual backing, set the intention, do the ritual. When you get to the ritual, you have the support that you need to make sure that the ritual is actually effective at helping you fulfill whatever was in your heart about that intention. You want to consistently practice this self care ritual for your mind and your body. When you're burning sage or palo santo or anything else, start by making sure that you open a window, okay? If you're cleansing your space of negative energy, which is often what white sage is used for, it's used for cleansing as well as mental focus, better quality sleep, and it also improves the air quality. Make sure that you open up a window so that the negative energies that you've accumulated in your home leaves, okay? White sage in general, if you've never burned it, it's very strong scent. A lot of people who are not familiar, when they smell it, that think it's marijuana because it has this woodsy, like herbal scent to it, and it's very, very strong. So I just want to prepare you for that, which is another reason why we want to open up our windows because when we don't, that strong scent is going to stay in the house. Okay. Now, Palo Santo is this. That's what I was showing you. And let me show you white sage for those of you who are not familiar. This is a stick of white sage. This is what it looks like. And it's basically several leaves of sage that have been bounded together, tied around with a rope, which I removed. And generally, people will light it at the tip here, and then they will move around the house with it. And it creates a lot of smoke along the way. Okay? With palo santo, which in Spanish it basically means holy wood because it's been used for spiritual rituals for many, many years. Hi, Nasim. Thanks for being here. Palo Santo smells like pine, mint, and lemon. Some of the benefits are relaxation. It calms anxiety as well. It reduces bad odor in your space and relieves headaches. Okay? So, smudging and smoke burning is good for spiritual rituals, but it is also used and was historically used by our ancestors for blessings and spiritual protection and healing the physical body and lots of other things. Here are some of a few of other herbs that can bring some benefits to smudging. Lemongrass. Lemongrass is good for clarity and focus, burning that. Cedar, the wood, is good for protection, grounding, and renewal of your spirit. So cedar is definitely a good one to use when we are having a new moon, like setting some new intentions. So Lee said she walks the perimeter of her home in every room and corner. I love that. Yes, that's exactly the way to do it. And just make sure to go around in circles so that you are at the center. You see the significance of that ritual? Kind of like, the clock, you are at the center and the clock is moving around. Okay, the 12 zodiac signs, you are at the center. Everything in life that is meaningful happens in a circle. Look at the planets. Look at a wedding ring. Look at your eyes. Enough said, right? All right. Dragon's blood is another one that you can burn for love, strength, can be used to add potency to any spell work that you're doing. Pine needles is good for prosperity, persistence, moderation, self confidence, and for blessing a new home. Bay leaves are great for reducing anxiety. That's one of my favorites, by the way, because I struggle with anxiety and ADHD. So generally, it's not difficult for me to get mentally, overwhelmed in my brain where I'm traveling a million different ways at the same time. I know it doesn't seem that way on the outside. It's because I have a therapist and I have a psychiatrist and I do the things that I need to do to keep myself healthy. But I think some of those spiritual rituals that I do also help provide me comfort. Bay leaves in particular, I have found have been very, very helpful for me in my healing because it provides a lot of calming energy. And in addition to that, bay leaves are also great for success. If you're trying to manifest money in your life, for those of you who are not familiar, hi Lee, thank you so much for my rose. I love it. For those of you who are not familiar, bay leaves are a great way to manifest money as well as healing. So that's one of the tools that I use often in my rituals. If you're a Leo in particular, I want you to make that as part of your ritual. Also, if you have a Leo at your Mars, you should always be using bay leaves because prosperity is yours. It's your birthright as a Leo Mars. If you're struggling with prosperity and health and vitality, is because energy cleansing. So bay leaves is the best way for you to do that. Okay. Another tool that you can use, another herb is lavender. Some people like to add lavender to sage and mix them together when they're burning it just to make the scents a little bit more sweet. I love lavender. Those of you who follow me on my healing channel, while I talk a lot about my mental health and living with chronic illness, I have so many videos on there about reviews that I've done of lavender products, whether it's shower gel that's lavender or shower bombs that are lavender. I love those. I make those at home myself. Lavender is also another herb that brings about a lot of healing properties with regards to anxiety. It has a lot of calming properties. So if you're somebody who struggles with anxiety like I do, yes, someone said lavender is very calming and relaxing. Yes, it's actually been proven scientifically to assist with that. Before we had modern medicine and psychiatrists and therapists and primary care providers, this is literally all we had was the earth, and our ancestors knew which herbs would cure what thing. I've shared this with you guys before. I come from a long lines of herbal healers. My grandmothers on both sides, my mother and my father's sides, were very strong healers. My great grandmothers on my mother's side actually was a renowned healer in her African village. People would travel from different parts of the country to come see her because she was the best one that they knew that could cure anything if nothing else will work. So that's kind of the DNA that I carry with me as I entered this life. And when I was little, my parents hardly ever went to the hospital. Like, we hardly ever pursued Western medicine unless it was dire. I only remember one time being in a hospital where I was under an IV because the herbal medicine wasn't able to heal me. I was about 15 at that time. That is literally the only time I remember being in a hospital until coming to the US at age 16. So before Western medicine, these old practices that, now we consider new age and weird existed, which is kind of the irony of it all, because these are actually the way that we healed ourselves and the way we took care of ourselves before now. So there's nothing new age about astrology. It predates psychology. Before Europeans told you about psychology, you know, there were other ways that people were taking care of disturbing emotional experiences that people were having. And I'm not necessarily saying that modern medicine has no value. So this is not me saying, hey, you should ignore modern medicine. Obviously, I just shared that I have a psychiatrist and a therapist. So clearly, I partake. But it's important to me to also have a ritual that makes me feel close to my ancestors and that makes me feel grounded in my natural state in this realm. And for me, a lot of this is about that. Even the palo santo, there's something about it that feels very healing, very ancient for me when I burn it. Hi. So we're talking about using smoke as part of our spiritual rituals and for both healing. Peppermint is another one that you can burn, which is basically to bring new energy. It is refreshing as it is soothing. Catnip can be burned for love, beauty, and happiness. Burning cloves is a good way to basically burn away like negative forces. And it also has, a way to kind of raise your spiritual vibration. I really love the scent of cloves. So for those of you who are not familiar, I would definitely recommend it if you struggle a lot with absorbing other people's negative energies and not strong like infrared, like red light around your energetic space so people know where their boundaries are with you. I would recommend incorporating cloves because for me that has been very, very helpful. Sweetgrass is also another one that's widely used for, smoke ceremonies in addition to white sage to call in good spirits. Oftentimes with Palo Santo, people use it to call in good spirits, to invite good energy before they move on with their spiritual practices. So, in short, smoke is used to cleanse your space, it's used to cleanse your chakras, it's used to cleanse your aura. It's a good way to basically reset yourself by cleansing your space of any negative energies. But obviously, there are lots of other ways to emotionally invite good spirits to work with you and emotionally invite good vibes into your spiritual aura and also emotionally repel energies and repel vibes that are not in harmony with that with where you're headed. Someone is asking, cloves, you said? Yes, cloves. You can burn cloves to repel negative energies. So that's basically what I had today in terms of how to use smoke as a way to cleanse your space and as a way to basically create a spiritual ritual that allows you to have the most amount of support from the spirit world as you're moving forward. Some of these herbs that I mentioned with regards to, herbs that you can smoke to invite different energies. For those of you that are into lunar rituals, that are into taking spiritual baths, and if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, I've talked about spiritual baths a few times. I have a couple of videos on that. You can go onto my YouTube channel at Intuitive Healing. Just use a search bar and search for spiritual baths. That way you don't have to waste your time looking around, and that those videos are going to come up and you can watch those. They're very easy to do. I'm a big advocate of those around the lunar cycle because physically cleansing your space, especially if you have a water Mars, if you have Mars in Pisces, Cancer, and Scorpio, you manifest the best with water. So you need to be doing lunar cycle rituals, period. And you need to be doing them with baths, period. Because there's no other element that you can use for your manifestation that will be more potent. If you have a fiery Mars, you need to be using fire. So you work really well with smoke. If you have a watery Mars, you work really well with water. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So this is all about how do we use ancient rituals that our ancestors have been using since the beginning of time to enhance our spiritual practices so we can feel more grounded, more empowered, and more resourceful. Life doesn't get any easier as we get older, but we get smarter if we're doing it right, right? And we get stronger. A lot of us who are spiritually disconnected, we think we've got to do it all on our own. And that's why we struggle with manifestation. When you're living it right, as you get older, you're supposed to realize that you didn't bring yourself here and that there was a whole team of people that were present on that day when your mother was birthing you. And all those people are still with you every day. And they want to see you win. They want to see you thrive. And they're always supporting you, always encouraging you. Whenever you have a download about something you're not supposed to know that you just know and that just feels right, where do you think that comes from? It's not you. You have an entire spirit team with you because God, in our infinite wisdom, knows that we need help. So nobody's ever alone. It's up to us to reach out and get the help that we need to be able to make our dreams come true and really step into our power because they've already lived this life, your ancestors. All these spirits that are around you in the forms of human, they know them. They know them better than you. Why don't you ask them about those people? So this is really about you utilizing your spiritual resource as an additional tool to navigate the complexities of this human reality that we all are living in. And it's also a good way to heal yourself. You guys know that I live with a chronic illness called lupus, and a lot of my healing has come from getting deeper into my spiritual rituals. And I know for some people that may not make sense, but it worked for me. It really did work, and it really does work. And this is why I'm talking more about like spiritual practices, and I'm going to be talking more about crystals because I want you guys to understand that all these things are not new things. Even crystals, I know that some people are like making fun of it, like, oh, the what do they call us? The rock girls, the crazy rock girls. It's like, do you guys know that crystals have been a part of life since the beginning of time? And for the people that are Christians, do you guys know that crystals have been mentioned in the Bible like over 1,000 times? Do you know that incense is mentioned in the Bible? None of these things are new. And before the Bible, these things were being done. People were using these things. And I use the Bible because that is the most common religious book that people know of. I just need you to know that none of this is new. This is all old. Our ancestors were familiar with these things. The reason why we suffer in this realm is because we have disconnected ourselves from our spiritual essence and our spiritual practices. And we've overindulged into our thinking and neglected our core, which is our energetic aura. So as a result of that, we no longer trust ourselves now. So now everything that we don't know, we go here as opposed to going here. And we can't go here because this gives us anxiety because we're still learning how to love ourselves, honor ourselves, trust ourselves, listen to ourselves, all this. And this is why I spend so much time talking about healing is because until you can reconnect with your God essence, you will continue to live fearfully. And there's no reason for that because you're here to be great. All of us are. That's the trick of it all. We all are. All right. So that is all that I had for today. I'll take one question about using smoke as part of a spiritual ritual. And that's going to be it. So who has a question? Or if you guys want to ask me manifestation questions, I can answer those as well. I know there were some questions coming in when I was talking, so I don't want to be unfair and just pick a person, a random person. So I'll just let you guys ask. Whoever asks first, I'll answer it. Hi, Glenn. Thanks for joining. Don't be shy. And speaking of working with our ancestors while you guys are deciding on the question, if you want to ask one or not, if you are a Capricorn, Aquarius, or Scorpio, you should not have any type of ritual that does not involve your ancestors because your entire existence is for them. So if you have Scorpio Mars, Capricorn Mars, or Aquarius Mars, you are literally here because your ancestors brought you here. So they're always with you, even more strongly than all the others. So should involve them because they're literally your life force. They fight every battle for you. They give you every suggestion because remember, you're here because there's some things that didn't do well. They dropped the ball and you're their second chance. They chose you as their redemption and they want you to be successful. So you trying to get into a spiritual ritual without their involvement doesn't make much sense when they're ready and available to guide you. So for you guys, I would definitely recommend focusing on that. And I will have another conversation when we talk about working with our ancestors and what does that look like so that you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. Thank you so much for my rose. I appreciate it. All right. Any questions about any of this? Spiritual rituals, manifestation, anything in that arena? All right. Well, since you guys don't have any questions, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I look forward to seeing you. Oh, someone does have a question. What's the best manifestation strategy for Aquarius rising? Transcendental meditation. Meditation and specifically transcendental meditation. If you are an Aquarius and you're not already engaging in that, in terms of like choosing your tool, I would go with your Mars versus your rising. But I think anybody that has Aquarius, Sun, Moon, or Rising needs to be somebody who meditates heavily. But I think it needs to be somebody that meditates on transcendental meditation because Aquarius is not of this world. Aquarius is not a human being. Okay. Then Cancer Mars, if we're going with manifestation rituals, I would go with spiritual bath. But if you, and in terms of spiritual practices every day, I think anybody that has Libra, Virgo, Gemini, or Aquarius at the rising sun or moon needs to be somebody that is a heavy deep into meditation. Also at the Mars, because you guys have overactive brains, and overactive brains bring about a lot of anxiety and depression. Okay. Sometimes you guys will literally create problems that don't exist just so you can have something to worry about. That's the energy, unfortunately, that brings. Meditation is a way to discipline your mind. It's a way to train your brain in the same sense that, when you learn how to drive, it wasn't nobody just threw your key and threw a car at you and sent you on the road. In the same way that you had to go through driving school so you could learn how to drive before you got on the road, it's kind of the same thing. If you want to be a powerful manifester, you have to be somebody that is disciplined with your spiritual practice. It's exercise for your brain. That's how you decide what's worthy of your attention and what's not worthy of your attention. That's how you decide when you need to act and when you need to hold back. Manifestation is about responding from the spirit world about what we need to do with our lives. If you're stuck here and you're not listening, which meditation is where we hear, meditation is where we hear. Meditation is where we see our ancestors. And if you're Aquarius, you will literally see them. And what you recognize is that your ancestors all look different because you've lived so many different lives. This is not your first rodeo. You have different, you have ancestors from every culture, nation, language. I know some of us are still stuck on racism, but I'm here to tell you that you've been every color on earth and every texture on earth. All of them. You've been all of them. And your ancestors are going to look like all of them. At first, when you start meeting your ancestors, it will look like you. And the more you get to know them, you'll realize they will look like all sorts of people. And if you're Aquarius rising, Sun, Moon, or rising, and Mars, I need you to get on that ASAP, because you're literally here to get humans to recognize that we're all the same. You're supposed to be doing that work for Pisces before they get to Pisces. Because when you get to Pisces, what you understand, one, with God. Pisces knows we are a part of God. Pisces knows we are gods and goddesses because we are from God. God even says we were made in God's likeness. So if God made us, what else are we but a part of God? That's what Pisces knows, that the humans make one. Everything is one. The animal kingdom, the human kingdom, and the spiritual realm, all of us together is one thing. All of us came from the same source. Aquarius is here to teach the humans that they need to close their eyes and open their hearts. Because when they open their hearts, what they will know is that we feel the same thing. We have the same experiences, and they do that by opening their ears. That's why Aquarius doesn't judge, because they understand that fundamentally at the root of it, these isms that keep us from one another, they are foolish. They keep us stifled as a whole. And that's why, spiritually speaking, we're still in the dark ages, because we're stuck over here when we're supposed to be vibing over here, which is that literally every human being has been everything else and will be everything else, because energy is neither created nor destroyed. This is an outfit. God can give this outfit to whoever God wants 200 years from now. It doesn't belong to me. Somebody else can look like this 200 years from now. It won't be me. It would be another spirit in this body, but this is not my body. My spirit is going to be in another body. So the fact that we get so caught up in the conditioning of the like the human existence, and we get so caught up in the physical realm, and the fact that we're so disconnected from our spirit realm is problematic. Because if we understood that we're truly spirits all from the same source, none of these isms would even exist. Because think about it. Why? Okay. So Aquarius, Sun, Moon, Rising, Mars, absolutely, you need to get on that. Cancer, Mars, you need to know the lunar schedule, period. If you're Cancer, Mars, Sun, Moon, or Rising, you need to know the lunar calendar so well that you're supposed to know what to expect from yourself emotionally as the moon is transitioning. And when you start studying that, you would notice how your mood shifts based on what's happening with the lunar calendar. As an example, right now we're experiencing a quarter of the moon. Generally, quarters of the moon bring about anxiety, they bring tension. So this next week, you're probably going to be experiencing some tension, because what's happening right now, because we just had a full moon, is we made ourselves aware about like some of the ways that we haven't made the best decisions in the past, some of the ways that we've dropped the ball on ourselves, speaking specifically about the cardinal signs, wherever you have Libra, Aries, Cancer, and Capricorn placements, whether you have it at the Venus, Sun, Moon, or Rising, whatever houses you have it in, you're going to be reflecting more in this part of your life. And you're going to reflect more on how you haven't made the best decision to put yourself in the best position. And you're going to have more clarity all of a sudden that you've never had before about, oh, that's what I need to do to get to the next level. But then when you get that clarity, you're going to want to do something about it right away. But with the quarter of the moon, it's not a time to do something. It's a time to listen and sit with it. And that's where the tension comes in. So if you find people feeling irritable with the Leo moon that we're currently having, that's expected. People feeling frustrated, that's expected. Because there's tension now to do something about our fuck ups, because we're embarrassed that we did all these things that ended up ruining us. But we're not supposed to be hasty. We're supposed to be digging into that trash to see where exactly it broke, so we can figure out how to heal that. And then when it's time to reset, we're ready to reset on the right foot. Thank you for my gift. There's plenty of times to do all the things we're sent here to do. Time is an illusion. And I'm speaking to you, Capricorn. Capricorn, Sun, Moon, Rising, Mars. There's plenty of time, okay? I know you don't like to waste your time, Capricorn, but I need you to know that God is so kind that God would not send you to Earth to do a job and not give you the right time to do it. There's plenty of time to do what you were sent here to do. I just need you to do it well. I don't need you to skip steps. Because when you don't do it well and you skip steps, you're going to make that same mistake again, because you're not learning. You're trying to rush to the results. The results are not going to be good if you're rushing and if you're not doing a good job. And that's what they're about being grounded. Thank you so much for my gift, Blondie. They're about being grounded. They're about routine. They're about discipline. Discipline is about what to say yes to and what to say no to. It's about knowing that I have the power to choose. This is about self-reflection. This is about owning our mistakes because we're leaders. This is about building our confidence because we know we messed it up so we can fix it. And this is about pumping ourselves up emotionally for that next round because we know the next time we're just going to nail it because we know what messing it up looks like. We've been there, done that. We have the t-shirt to prove it. Now we're ready to move on to make some new mistakes. And that's about choice. Manifestation, in a way, is about choice. You have to want better and you have to choose better. And that means you have to be willing to look at mistakes. Because when we don't learn from mistakes, we repeat them. That's what happens. So that was a good question. Thanks so much, you guys, for hanging out with me. So, okay, I'm going to read one last comment. Cancer Moon, and you told me this in my reading. Currently reading Moonology. Oh, I love that. Beautiful. I'm so glad that the reading that we had together was, effective in sending you down this path because my poor cancers, I see so many of them in my practice. I would say the number one client that I see has Cancer, Sun, Moon, or Rising. Because you guys are getting life handed to you by these dark forces that just want to use you and throw you back out there. And a lot of you don't have good self-protection skills. So maybe you guys need to be burning cloves, like we talked about. You guys need to be having some daily rituals about protecting your energy. If you're a Cancer, Sun, Moon, Rising, Stellium, North Node, please, we need you to take care of yourself. Leave the humans to figure out their lives, okay? And where you struggle the most really is your family and your love relationships. You don't owe anyone anything, especially if you're neglecting yourself in the process. How is that loving? You mean to tell me that the smartest entity force in the universe sent you to Earth to give away every good thing that you have so you could live miserably? Does that even make sense to you? But this is the smartest consciousness in the universe? That's not very smart or very kind. So, no, I don't think that's of God. Because God is love and God does not want you to not love yourself so other people can feel loved. That's not it. That ain't it. We do not get ourselves to our dream lives by leaving ourselves behind. That's what we do when we neglect ourselves. We leave ourselves behind. Your dream life needs you in it. So you have to show up for you first and foremost. That is your ultimate responsibility in this life. This is what Aquarius knows. That is your ultimate responsibility. That's literally the only thing you're held accountable for. What did you do with the time that I gave you? Is what you will be asked. So if you're not taking care of you, what good can you be for the rest of us? We don't need you because we know what you're going to give us is janky because you don't even know what good love is. The way you be treating yourself, I don't want to be loved like that. The way you abuse and neglect yourself, no ma'am. Let's bring this love back in. Let's cleanse this love. Let's heal this love. Let's pour so much of it back in your heart. You're just illuminating with light. And then when you choose to give your love, you do so. When you choose. Notice it's when you choose. And if they're not deserving, they're not deserving. Simple as that. Not everybody thinks. I know that's hard to hear, but it's the truth. Some people don't want your love, they just want you to not have it. And until you can learn the discernment to recognize who is who, I would rather you keep it. Because they're happy to just drain you of it and not be there to give you any of the support that you've given them when they needed it. How fair is that? Thank you for my birthday wishes. So that was my little tidbit for Cancers. I love you guys so much, Cancers. You guys You guys are the warriors. You guys are the sensitive warriors of the zodiac. I just want you to take care of that heart. That's all. Because you have a lot of love to give and we appreciate it, but we don't want the process of trying to give it to us because we don't deserve it that much. That's not why you're here. Okay? All right, y'all. Have a good rest of your day. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll catch you next time. Love you. Take care. Au revoir.